Hello, welcome back. In the last lesson, we looked at conditioners and operators. In this lesson, we are going to take a look at variables and how we can use them. Let's get in right away. So what is a variable? A variable is a space in a computer's memory where we can store data. I want you to think of a variable like a box with a name where you can store things. And anytime you make reference to the name of that box, doesn't give you the box itself, but gives you the content inside the box. I've actually been using variables since the beginning of this course, but this course would not be complete if we did not talk about them in detail, because variables are fundamental concepts in programming. All right, so let's see variables in action in our Python environment. All right, so I'm right here on my PictoBlox Python environment, and I'm going to zoom in so that we can see what we are doing clearly, because I really want us to see this very clearly, because we'll be writing just a little bit of code. Now, if you notice, we already have a good example of a variable before us. When working with variables in Python, we create a variable by simply giving it a name. For this variable, the name is called sprite, and we assign a value using the equals sign. And the value of this variable is a sprite object referring to this sprite we have here on the stage. Now, from this variable, we now have all the properties and method needed to manipulate this sprite as PictoBlox has provided for us, right? Which we talked about in one of our lessons. Now, what if we want to create our own variable? Let's say we are building a game and we are going to store the score of the player in a variable so that we can increase it later in our game. We are going to call a variable called score, or create a variable called score rather, and assign it a value of 0. That way we can use some kind of logic in our game to increase the value of score. Now, in the introduction, remember I said when you make reference to the name of a variable, it does not give you the variable itself, it gives you the value of the variable, the content of that variable. Let's confirm if that works. I'm going to do print and say score. If I run this, we're going to get 0, which is the value of score on the terminal, as you can see here. I'm going to delete this and let's create more variable. Now, one thing you need to know about variable is that since a variable stores data, there are different types of data type. I'm just going to mention a few in this lesson. In the next lesson, we are going to take our time to talk about data type in depth. So, this number we are storing inside this variable called score is called an integer in Python. And many of you must have heard about integer in mathematics, and the abbreviation is int. So I'm going to create another variable, and this time I'm going to call it name. Let's say we want to store the name of a person in our program. We can create a variable called name and assign a value to it. Let's say I'm going to use my name, Levi. Now, if I print name, we are going to get Levi, and we are also getting 0 because we are printing score. Now, we know this to be called text, right? But in Python, this is called a string. And this is not just in Python. In other programming languages, text are referred to as string, and the short form is str. Now, let's look at one more data type that you can store inside a variable. Let's say we are going to store the price of a goose in our program. Let's say the price of a bag. So I'm going to create a variable called bag underscore price. And I'm going to say this is $7.5. It costs $7.5 or 7.5 naira. And if I run this, we have not printed it, so we need to print it. I'm going to clear and run again and get bag price. Now I want to talk about what I just did here, but before then, let me put the name of this data type. It's called a float, and I think we can just leave it like this, float. Can't remember the short form. So I want to talk about the way I combine two words to form the name of this variable called bag price. Now in programming, there's what we call naming conventions specifically for variables. Now we have different naming conventions. This particular naming convention is the recommended naming convention for Python, and it's called snake case. So this is called snake case. You have two words. You write the first word and you connect it with the other word using an underscore. Now we have different naming conventions in programming that you come across in other programming language, like camel case. So this example of camel case, so I'm going to put a comment, say camel case. Camel case looks like this. We're going to say bag and we're going to say price, and let's store 5.5 here. Notice that the name of this variable differs from the name of this variable because variable name is case sensitive. So if you use capital letter B to write a bag at the beginning and use small letter b, Python is going to treat those variables as two different things. Let's really confirm by looking at another common naming convention called Pascal case. So we also have Pascal case. Now for Pascal case, when we write the variable name is that we say capital letter bag and capital letter price. And let's do 4.5. I'm going to try to print everything. Let's see if we are going to get an error or not. So let's say print bag price, and let's print bag price. We're going to clear the terminal and run. Now you see we get the values of all these variables. Python does not forbid camel case or Pascal case. It's not going to give you an error if you use those naming conventions, but the Python style for writing variable recommends using Pascal case, and you can make more research about it. It's called the PEP8 style. It's specifically recommended using snake case for variable conversion. Right. So we have come to the end of this lesson where we just talked a lot about variable, from learning how to assign a variable a value, declaring the variable, and some few data types. Before we go, I want to show you how we can quickly check the type of a variable, the type of value the variable is storing. So I'm going to delete all this we have on the terminal, and let's comment this out. This is just like a bonus. I just came into my mind before I almost ended this video. So let's just do it quickly. I'm going to just below here, let's check the type of bag price here. So we're going to do print, and we're going to use a function that is available to us in Python that you can use to check the type of a variable. So let's say bag price. If I run this, we get the class of float. So you can see float. If I check for the type of the orders, let's quickly check for it. Let's do name, and let's print another one for score. Now if I run it, notice we get float, string, for the name, and for score we get int, which is for integer. So this is how you can check the type of value you are storing in a variable in case you don't know it, or in case you come across a code that you are not familiar with the data type being stored in a variable. You can simply use this type function to check the data type of that variable. Alright, so in the next video we are going to take a deep look into data types in Python and explore more data types, because we have more data types, and data types is not just a concept of Python but a fundamental concept in programming. And before you go, remember to subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who wants to learn programming, and leave a comment on the comment section if you have any question, and I will respond to it as soon as I can. See you in the next lesson. Bye.